Student.
Student. Okay, excellent. Okay, over here, anyone else?
Daughter.
Daughter. Okay, good. You guys? Yes. Foreigner. Okay. If someone makes you feel like a foreigner, that's a problem. Okay. Alhamdulillah, no foreigners here. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Physician. Okay, excellent. So, we talk about like gender, work, we can talk about family, all of these things are related to our identities, right? Okay? So, we can also talk about levels of commitment in terms of identity. Like, people go through these stages, right, of their development in terms of their identity. Like, first, as someone is developing, they are not sure about their identity, and then they latch on to some identity, and then they kind of like move with that, and then it develops and coalesces into something kind of solid, and then they kind of then make that their own, right? So we can talk about commitment in terms of identity, but when you think about identity, you want to think about the thing that is closest to you, right? That which is closest to you. So our true identity as human beings is Abdullah, the slave of Allah. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to us than what? Than our jugular vein, than the lifeblood flowing through us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to us, as He describes in the Quran, right? Than our jugular vein. And there's nothing greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of that which we could connect to, right? Like, you want to connect, you want to make your identity related. You can talk about like place, and keep going outward to the greatest identity. The greatest identity is to be connected to the creator of the universe, right? So you see that nisba, that Abdullah, right? It's the slave of Allah. That nisba is an identity. So that is our truest identity, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the closest to us, the one who created us, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of everything, so that there's nothing else in the universe that is greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can attach ourselves to, right? Okay? So that's something that we want to think about as a frame, because identity is one of these things that is often very fluid, but then also when those identities come up against certain realities and they break, then our world breaks. So someone who was always a physician, for example, and they used to do intricate surgeries, and then, la samahallah, like they lost their eyesight. Then what happened? Like, they can't do their surgeries anymore. I mean, this is like, for someone who identified themselves their whole life as a surgeon, as the best, and then all of a sudden, boom, they can't do that. That's no longer their identity. Or that's not, they can identify with that, but they've lost that ability which confirms that identity to them. So that happens throughout our lives, okay? These things happen. In other words, we will construct identities that will run up against reality at times, but the identity of Abdullah, it is always there. It will always be true, and it will always be strong. The more you strengthen it, the better it becomes, and it will it's al-urwat al-wuthqa, the strongest handhold, the Quran, right, will confirm that identity. That identity is the greatest identity because you'll never lose it. Because when you connect your identity as the slave of Allah, that nisbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the highest honor, then that will be something you can always grow with. It's not something that will run up against reality and shatter, right? Okay, so here, of course, we have some of these ayat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون. So then why do you not intervene when the soul has reached the throat? Like someone is dying and their soul is leaving their body. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you're so strong, can you stop that person from dying? No man, no intervention. When they're in the throes of death, it's over. No amount of intervention is going to change that person, right? وَأَنْتُمْ حِينَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ, and you're looking at it. SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're looking at it happen, right? وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And we are nearer to Him than you, but you don't see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and we have created man, and we know what those dark suggestions are to his soul, and we are nearer to him than his jugular vein. And then there's so this is in the present, but our identity preceded this world. Our identity preceded this world. And this is what is called the mithaq. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to all of the souls that were created and brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He said to them, Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? And we all said, Bala shahidna. Yes, we witness. We witness. So there is something in us, that preceded our existence in this world, that witnessed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's lordship. And we affirmed it, and that is an identity that is closer to us than all these other identities that we acquire and construct and develop as we grow and live in the world. So this is why we want to begin with this idea that identity is Abdullah. We want to be the Abdullah. Okay? Now, we want to, when we're trying to make good decisions, okay, we have to seek, how do we make, so if we're Abdullah, well, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then I have to act in the world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to do what? To follow the guidance. So how do we make good judgments? How do we do that? What do you say? How do we make good judgments? Sheikh Ali?
Consult.
Consult people. Good. Excellent. To do consultation. Good. Anybody else? Ladies?
Expedient.
Quran and Sunnah, right?
Reflection.
Reflection. Istikhara. Excellent. But you see, we live in a culture and a society that tries to create systems, philosophical systems, that provide some type of ethical guidance, but they fall apart. Okay. So, there's a philosopher named Kant. He has what's called this idea called the categorical imperative, right? The categorical imperative. So he said that that which is ethical is that it should apply across the whole category. Like it shouldn't be something that you make any exception to. That you would do it at any point. Okay? But you see, the problem was that there is no category that doesn't have exceptions. Okay? So then how do you know when to make the exception or when not to make the exception? If you have human rights, okay, and all humans have a right to live, but then you say Gaza is an exception to that. Do you see what I'm saying? They make their own judgments, okay, and they say, well, we're going to make an exception here, because they made their own destroy. It's hella. So you see what I'm saying? So the other aspect of making judgments, is this idea of utility. So then, for example, you can say, like Mill talks about the utility, okay? The most good, you can produce the most good. That's what's ethical. But the problem with that is that who decides what's the most good? If your own self-preservation is the highest good, that's a problem. Because in our culture, self-preservation is the highest good. So that means that I will do anything. Anything is good if I am worried about my self-preservation. So that's why they say related to Israel, that they're worried about their self-existence. That's why they do what they do. So then it's written off. So do you see how this idea of ethics, but then ethics, when it founders, when it hits the rocks of reality, when we see that it just breaks down so terribly, right? Then we have to see, what does Islam tell us? What do we have? Someone said the Quran and Sunnah. You see, we have an external arbiter. You see, this idea of categorical imperative is this idea, philosophical idea, utility, the greatest good. There's no concrete physical example that I need to as an arbiter for what is right and what is ethical. You have to have a person. You have to have a person who was the example of ethical behavior in order to model oneself after, to be able to make ethical judgments. Okay? And so, of course, alhamdulillah, you all will say, well, we have Quran and Sunnah, right? Well, that's not obvious to everybody, okay? Right? And so this is something that we have that is a huge blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay? We have to realize that we have the guidance for humanity. We have to understand that very clearly. We have the guidance for humanity. We have to learn it. We have to embrace it. We have to live with it, right? Okay. So we model ourselves outwardly on the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, the question we would ask ourselves is, what would the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam do in this situation? What would he do? We look at the example of his character and what he did, and we look at what the Quran tells us about the commands and the prohibitions, and then we would make a judgment, right? Okay. Now, we have an inward criterion and an outward criterion. So the outward criterion is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the guidance of the Quran. But we also have an inward criterion. What is that? When I say inward criterion, what do you think that means? Ihsan. Yeah. What else? Tawakkul. Fitra. Fitra. Okay? So fitra is the pure nature that human beings were created upon. So we have that pure nature. What is that pure nature? That is the tawheed. Bala shahidna. Yes, we witness. Okay? But notice the Prophet, what does the Prophet ﷺ he say? Right? He says, so one of the Sahaba, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, سألت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن البر والإثم. I asked him about righteousness and sin. فقال البر حسن الخلق. So bir, righteousness, is good character. والإثم ما حاك في صدرك. And sin is that which doesn't sit right with you. It moves in your chest. وَكَرِهْتَ أَنْ يَطَّلَعَ عَلَيْهِ النَّاسِ. And you would hate that someone else would see it. That they would see you do that thing. So you see, we have this inborn nature which is pure and good, but it gets changed, right? It gets warped by social mores and understandings and things like that. So the inward is not enough. The inward is not enough. You have to have the inward and the outward. You have to have the inward nature that we purify. That we purify the inward to make so that we come closer to what? To bala shahidna. Yes, we witness. So we do that through purifying the heart, through dhikr, through these types of things. And then we learn the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and we have the outward. So we have the inward and the outward. They together will give us the depth, the ability to judge in the depth of understanding, right? So, in the Sharia, we have now we're going to look at the outward criterion, okay? So the outward criterion, right, is Quran, Hadith, and then we have these other sources of the Sharia, like we have ijma', which is like consensus. We have qiyas, ijtihad. Okay, we have other principles that the fuqaha use, right? In usul, like if we're going to derive, what are the usul? What are the bases of the Sharia that we use to make these judgments? Okay, and there are 10, right? Some say 11. Okay. The fuqaha over time, they've developed a system for making judgments. So you have usul, that's your base. Then you have the qawa'id fiqhiyya, which are what? These ahkam, some say 1.5 million or so. Some scholar from like the early 20th century, he tried to calculate how many ahkam there were in the Sharia. Something he said like 1,250,000, something like this. And then, but now it just, because there's always changing, right? There's always new things. So there are ulama are constantly developing ahkam from the Sharia, from the usul, and these are constantly increasing. And then you have the aims of the Sharia, which are what? They're called maqasid al-Sharia. The aims of the Sharia. These are what are they? They're 6. Right? What are the aims of the Sharia? Deen, the preservation of deen, of life, of intellect, of property, of progeny, and of dignity. Okay, so when the ulama, they looked at the Sharia broadly, not from a deductive, but from an inductive perspective, they said the Sharia generally preserves these 6 things. Okay? So do you see here, there's a way you always begin with what? With usul. And you move towards aims. You begin with usul and you move towards aims. And the various different qawa'id, they're going to help guide you to that aim. Okay? Guide you to that aim, right? So the first of the qawa'id asasiyya, there are 5 qawa'id asasiyya, okay? The first one is what? Al-umuru bi-maqasidiha. So affairs are what? Are by their intents. And it comes from the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, right? You all know this hadith, okay? But it applies across the Sharia. It applies everywhere. Al-umuru bi-maqasidiha, right? Okay. So let's think about. So I have a little thought experiment. Okay. So you are now when you have a question, okay. You want to know what should I do in this situation. You have to start with usul. You can't start in maqasid. No, doesn't work like that. You can't use maqasid and somehow derive a ruling. Does not work like that. Okay? You have to begin with usul. Usul is what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? What are the commands and the prohibitions? Okay? You have to begin with the asl. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said something about it clearly, khalas, there's no question. It's over. Sami'na wa ata'na. Okay? You see? But what if there's something there's no clear command, prohibition, right? Then we do what? Then you have to ask a alim. Okay? You ask a alim. Someone who knows the Sharia. Why? Because how do you know where to start in the usul? How do you know where to start? Like, what is the asl that is closest to your question? I mean, there are lots of starting points, right? There are lots of places to start. So we have to know where you start with the asl, and then we're going to move up towards the maqasid. Okay? Up towards the maqasid. Okay. So let's take an example. Okay? Now you may all have opinions about this already, so just, if you have your own opinion or you have heard someone tell you one way or the other, that's fine. Okay? But we're gonna kind of go through this as a process of thinking through this methodology, right? Okay, so you're attending school. Have any of you been to elementary school and you had to do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. You know that? Okay, so you've probably been to. I went to elementary school. I have to do that, right? So you have the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so you attend school and you are asked to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so then the question is, the person's gonna, then all of a sudden we have all these questions, right? Should I do this? Should I what? Should I hold my hand over my heart? Should I recite the pledge? Looking around. Okay. So, question. So what do we do in a situation like this? Okay. We can ask a alim. Okay, that's a smart thing to do, right? Ask a alim, he'll go through this process, right? But you see, we can also we can see how the maqasid, the qawa'id fiqhiyah, they help us to come to better judgments, right? So first of all, where do we start in terms of the asl? What is the Pledge of Allegiance? What do you think? Okay, let's just pair up and discuss it for a moment. Okay, I'll give you 1 minute. Okay, so What is the pledge of what in the usul is a good starting point for understanding what this is? Okay, go ahead. I'll give you 1 minute. Okay, just talk to the person next to you. Same one you talked to.
I've never heard it before, like in different events, someone sings the Pledge of Allegiance to say, I pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. So it's equivalent to think about like every nation has a kind of like a theme song. Every nation has their own theme, you know. Every country has some type of song or some type of saying that's for their nation specifically.
It's like I'm not gonna betray my country.
Yeah, exactly. So you're pledging your allegiance to the country that, you know, I'm American and that I abide by the laws of America, things
It's
like
like
that.
no.
Yes, yes. No, yes. So you would think about it. Does it? The way I would think is, okay, does this pledge of allegiance take me away from Allah? My first thought would be that. Does it go against Quran and Sunnah? Which I think no. I don't think it does. Quran and Sunnah teaches us it's okay to
Inshallah. So let's
country you live in.
let's discuss it. So, okay. So this time we'll start on this other side. So go ahead. What do you think? What is it? What does it most closely resemble?
Shahada.
Huh?
Shahada.
Shahada, a witnessing, like a witnessing of an agreement.
Testimony.
A testimony, shahada in front of a judge. Okay, so a shahada. Okay, good. Okay, so shahada. What else, ladies? Any idea? Okay, brothers. Shahada. Allegiance is what? What is allegiance?
Like a treaty or like.
Yeah, like a hilf or a what or an aqd. Do you get it? Okay, so let's just think along those lines. Okay, so what is in the Quran and the Sunnah we know about a hilf or a aqd or a what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أوفوا بالعقود أوفوا بالعقود. What does that mean? It means live up to your uqud. To your what? To your agreements. The agreements that you make. Fulfill your agreements. Like if you're gonna make an agreement with someone, follow through. Don't just make up, oh yeah. Let's make an agreement that, you know, like we'll protect each other or something like that, and then you just run off. Like ofu, wafa, what is wafa? Wafa is like that you are loyal. It means you're loyal. Be loyal to your agreements. Okay. So you see, like if you start, depending on where you start, like someone might say, Pledge of Allegiance, haram. Right? Okay, wait. Okay. Where do you start? Like if this is an aqd, if this is between you and this country that you live in, and you're affirming your aqd with that country, is that a problem from the Sharia point of view? That's not a problem. No, in fact, like if you're gonna make an aqd with someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you're gonna make an aqd, you better fulfill it. You better be loyal to that. Okay? So then the question is like, so someone said to me, you know, like, well, he's a pilot, okay? Like he does pilot. He's a pilot instructor. He said, if I don't stand for the allegiance, they're gonna throw me out. Okay? So he said, my intention is not that I now think that I have to listen and obey everything that they tell me to do. But if I have an agreement, what is the agreement? To be loyal and to defend and to uphold and to have good character and to follow through, etc. Right? Okay. So then you see the maqasid al-sharia are going to give us like a kind of like guidance here, right? Because they're going to say what al-umuru bi maqasidiha. How do we know what we're talking about here? The intents, the affairs of your judgments are understood by what? By the intents. By the intents. So how do we know what we're dealing with here? It's not that like, how dare you write, that you are loyal to something other than Islam. La, yani, that's not what we're talking about. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. Okay. The question is, and this is why the qawaid fiqh are so important, because al-umuru bimaqasidiha. How do we understand? We understand that by what? By the intent. What is the intent? The intent is to do what? When I pledge allegiance, I'm telling the other person, I am not a threat to you. I am not a threat to you. Okay? Right? Now, the question is, what about maqasid? The preservation of what? Of deen, of life, of intellect, of property, of progeny, of dignity. Which of these does doing the allegiance preserve? What does it preserve? Yeah.
Dignity.
Dignity. Okay, good. What else does it preserve?
Trust.
Trust, like life, right? Like I trust that I'll be safe with you. Okay? Right? So life, right? Justice, okay? Justice, again, that relates to upholding the sacred, people's property, their rights, so property, life, their children, progeny, etc., right? Okay? So do you see how, like, when the Sharia has this really robust methodology for making sound judgments, and you can go through that process with anything, and it's all based on derivations from what? From the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. No other legal, ethical system has that. No. They're either what? Too abstract, so they're not connected to reality. Why? Because they're not derived from the life of a living example of the best of the humanity, right? So this is just one of the qawaid fiqhiyah, and this kind of like course that I'm like developing, it goes through all 5 of these. Okay, so you can the next one would be al yaqeen la yazulu bi-shak, right? The certainty is not removed by doubt. Okay, so. Alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Jazakumullahu khairan. I want to thank Siraat and thank LIC and the leadership of LIC for this opportunity. Alhamdulillah, if you guys have any questions or discussion or point you want to go over it, inshallah, I'd be happy.
Who's got the slider? Who's got the slider?
Sorry? Did you say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's these QR codes. If you have a question, you can send it to the.
What exactly means tawakkul? Like tawakkul on Allah, or I submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the one of the things that I surrender to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, mashallah. Tawakkul is reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, like Al-Hakim al-Tirmidhi, he talks about the difference between tawakkul and ittikal. So, Tawakkul is that you rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you also take the means that He gives you in order to exhaust the means that He gives you, but you don't rely on them. You rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to complete the affairs. So you use the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you to the extent that you can, not relying on those means, but relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to complete the affair. Ittikal is that you don't take the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you and expect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take care of the affair when you didn't do anything. And that's like the shaitan. Yeah. So that's like the difference between tawakkul and ittikal. Kind of helps to explain the difference. So.
But Palmer,
Bye-bye.
some people may be interested in the course. If you can describe how to get in the course and whatnot, follow your.
Yeah. I'm just actually I'm just doing it on the side. I haven't actually implemented it. So whenever we'll see in the future. Hopefully, the idea originally is that it'll be for like high school and college age. To get them interested in this idea of like that Islam has a really robust and strong ethical foundation and how they could understand that and be proud of it, right? Because this is what bothers me, is that Muslims are criticized based on human rights and things like that, when Islam has the most robust ethical system. And that one is completely paradoxical, and we see. No one believes it.
After having like the understanding of the information that you mentioned in terms of maqasid, usul, and all of that, what would you say is like the takeaway for myself and for all of us, like leaving here, going home, now that we understand that there is a deeper meaning to the ahkam and to...
Yeah, excellent. Jazakumullah khair. So what it is that we have to know the ahkam first. So Islam doesn't start with philosophical ideas, it starts with ahkam that you implement on yourself. So that means we need to know what the fard ayn. How do I make wudu? Because all of these principles are embedded in those ahkam that already exist. So for example, like how do I pray salah? I need to know how to pray salah. I need to know the ahkam of salah. I need to know the ahkam of wudu. I need to know how to fast. I need to know what... You see, we don't start with a theoretical model and go to that. We start with the embodied aspect, and then we learn the abstraction, okay? And so that's why the first thing you can do is study with a qualified, person, your fard ayn. Like how do I make salah correctly? How do I make wudu correctly? I mean, these are things we have to know, right? And when we learn them, then we embed some of these ideas, some of these principles. We will know them intuitively because we practice them every day, right? Like al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. We know that from wudu. Why? Because if I make wudu and then I come to salah and I'm like, do I have wudu? I don't remember breaking my wudu, so fast. I'm gonna go and pray, right? That's al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. Okay, that principle is embedded in that. So it starts with the ahkam themselves and then abstracts. So that's why the first step is to learn the fiqh itself.
We have some anonymous questions.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
First one is, what should someone do when they feel like their faith has become numb and prayer and dua have become difficult?
MashaAllah. Allahumma salli. Yeah, subhanallah. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina Muhammad. Yeah, so this is a norm. First of all, you have to understand that it is normal to go through ups and downs in terms of your ibadah. Okay? Right? There are benefits in the downward and there are benefits in the up. Okay? Do not think that when you're numb, feeling numb to there's no benefit in that. Because there's deep ikhlas in doing your ibadah when you feel numb to it. Because why would you do it? You ask yourself, why am I doing that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded me. That's the only reason. Because I don't feel anything else. That means what? There's deep ikhlas in that. Because the only reason I'm doing that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded me to do it. So that is the base. When you get down to that low level, there's a deep amount of ikhlas there that you can benefit from. So what do? You hold yourself because everything that goes down will come up, okay, and it will go down. So you have to ride out those difficulties, okay. If you get into a low and it persists for a long time, that means you're doing something wrong. There's some tawbah you need to make. There's some tawbah. Like if it just will persist and it does not come out, then you need to turn in tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. And then inshallah you'll find an opening. But that persistence is very important because then when you come up out of it, you will have the basis for further development, and it will give you a grounding in the higher spiritual points of that continuum.
Next question is, what is the ruling on perfume for women? A lot of people say it's haram, but men are encouraged. Please explain.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, we have, mashallah, we have like fuqaha here, but generally the ruling is that women do not wear perfume outside. You can wear it for your husband, okay? You can wear it for your husband, but you can't wear it. This is the problem with our culture here, is it flips everything, right? The person is like, wearing sweats and a t-shirt at home, but they're all made up out when they go outside. Like, that's the opposite of the reality, okay? The person is supposed to be, like, to want to beautify themselves for their spouse. But then they cover when they go outside. Like, that's the fitrah, okay? But the culture in our society completely flips it, okay? So this is why, but for men, because men are, so again, Islam looks at males and females as complementary, okay? And there's a complementary dynamic there, right? And so men have certain spheres in the outward, i.e. working outside, etc., and women have certain spheres. Again, it doesn't mean they can't work, but then they have an inward aspect that they have to preserve, and that is beautiful, and they want to protect and preserve that, right? And so for men, they can wear the perfume outside, but then they have to, they also have to lower their gaze. They have to be very careful about their interactions with opposite gender, right? So that's generally, if I don't know, the fuqaha here who can enlighten us further if they have other things they want to add. So, do you have any points you want to add? Sure.
The next one is, how should I connect to Allah during Salawat? Because nowadays when praying, it feels like I'm somewhere else.
Yeah, so that, see, that's when we are at the beginning of our uh, not just the beginning, but as we're trying to improve in our ibadah, our our ability to concentrate on focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is less at the beginning and becomes more. Okay? It's like one of my teachers, someone came to him and he said, I don't know what to do about all of the thoughts. He said, what thoughts? Right? He was like, because again, the person, as you know, ibadah is like something, one of these things is like, it's like exercise. Like you get better at it as you do it. Okay? And so the idea here is that the more you do the ibadah, the more you concentrate, the more you focus when you're doing wudu before your salah, all of these things have an effect. Okay? And so just because one is feeling or not concentrating in one's salah doesn't mean that as you develop and perfect your salah that it will get better. It does get better. You just have to keep persisting in it. And this is one of the things that the believer is supposed to try and perfect their salah. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in numerous places in the Quran that He will, in one interpretation of this verse, that He will count all of our acts based on the best of them. So this is that we need to perfect our salah, because our best salah, inshallah, will be counted for all of our salah. But if you don't pray, it's not going to count. It's not going to count. So it's just like, so this is the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the benefit is persisting. Don't think that how you're going to be is how you are right now. It's going to get better. Okay? But that's what life is about. What better thing than one perfects one's salah? There's no better goal in life than to perfect your salah. Why? Because the first thing we're going to be asked about in our grave after our Allah, about who is Allah and who is our messenger, is our salah. How was your salah? And then if that's good, inshallah, khalas, everything else will be easy. So then what? So we have to do what? So it should be our goal. And they talk about, like, if you do something 10,000 times, you become you become an expert at it. Okay. Well, we're going to, inshallah, be praying, many thousands of salah. Inshallah, if Allah gives us lifespan. That's inshallah, we have this project, we're going to perfect our salah. Inshallah, that should be a goal of all of us. Okay, each salah, inshallah, hopefully is better than the next one. But don't think that how it is right now is going to be how it is in 10 years. Okay? Inshallah, as we develop physically, mentally, emotionally, everything, it gets better. Inshallah.
Next question is, when I feel peace, I feel like I'm less connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then feel like I didn't appreciate hardship. How do I maintain that relationship feeling good?
Yeah, so times of goodness, and that should be, those are times of thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So when we have good, we have to be thankful. Right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Surely if you give thanks, I will increase you. Okay? So the thankfulness is this, every state, every maqam has its maqal. Okay, so every station has that which is appropriate to it. So when we are in a state of plenty and peace, and then we need to do what? We need to be first thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we have to use that for good. Because we don't have any excuse. Like, we're sitting nice, air conditioned, we have, like, mashallah, we have money in the bank, we have this, we have that, we have health, and then there are people who are suffering. Like, are we doing anything for them? Are we talking about, supporting? Like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us these things to do something with, right? So if a person is kind of like, that indicates a stagnation, then that's a problem. They should see that as what? As a call to action. You have all of this, one should reflect, what am I doing with it? What am I doing with all of these blessings? Am I just enjoying them? Or am I using them in the way? Because that's the actual, the arbiter for the shukr is, am I using the blessing the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to use it? So if I have health, I have all of these things, and then I'm, sleeping through Fajr, I'm not going to the masjid, then I have to be asking myself, why is that?
Next question. How do you keep your faith strong when the people around you, such as family and friends, are not strong in their faith?
Yes, subhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kunu ma'as-sadiqin, be with those who are true. So you want to choose your friends. You can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. Okay? So your family, you're stuck with your family, okay? So you're gonna have to they have certain rights over us. Family have rights over us, okay? Whether they're Muslim or they're non-Muslim, they have certain rights. Now we have to, but our friends, we can choose our friends. And so you want to be with people who are going to improve you. Okay? We want to be with people who improve us, not with people who bring us down. Okay? So that means that we have a choice about that. Okay? That means we could go to the masjid, we could be part of the youth group, we could be part of the, find someone that is you want to do project. Usually how you be with people is you do projects with people who you want to be like them. So we have to make those choices, right? And that's really important. If we just hang around the people we always hang around, we're going to be dragged down by their states, and that's a real problem, right? So we need to try and find good companionship, and it's hard, but remember that it's better to restrict one's connections to people and focus on salah and ibadah than to be with people who are going to pull you down. And then the patience in that will then, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give, and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for good companionship. When you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these types of things, they happen. They just happen. Right? And I know, like for myself, when I was in high school, it was really a problem because I didn't have that many friends. I didn't have that many Muslim friends, right? And at one point, I was just like, I wasn't popular. I wasn't like, people didn't, I just didn't have. At one point, I was just like, oh Allah, I don't really have any friends. Oh Allah, you're the only person for me. Just, I'll be happy with that. And then subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me companionship. So that's what happens. You just have to we have to have the foundation right. And don't make compromises, right? So know that good companionship is very important. If I can't have good companionship, I'd rather not be with those people. I'll just wait until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me someone that's good. Then maybe inshallah he'll give you a spouse. That's the best kind of companionship. Yes.
I don't know if this is controversial, but one of the biggest hurdles for young professionals nowadays is housing affordability.
Yes.
So how do you reconcile if you want to avoid the riba, like a system built on riba,
Yeah.
but existing in a society that functions almost entirely on that system? How do you reconcile that as like a young Muslim
Yeah.
working? What are there some might say that there are exceptions to it, but if you, I guess, want to stay pure and out of it, do you have any advice?
So, Bismillah, what was I saying right now? Okay, yeah, this is a difficult point because, so I'll just tell you that first of all, the hukam on riba will never change. Okay, it will always be haram, no matter what anyone tells you. It will until the end of time, it will be haram. Okay, and it's very clear what it is, and that will never change. Okay, so that's the first thing you have to understand. How we deal with that will be each person's challenge. Okay, and I know people, many people, who they just said, I will not budge on this point. I will not make any exceptions on this point. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made ways for them. I'll just rent for the rest of my life. I don't care. I'm fine with renting. Okay. You will be amazed when you make, it's not like wavering here. When you make a very you know what's right and you make a commitment to it, reality changes around you. Okay? But only if you are very strong in your commitment to what's right. Okay? So and amazing things happen. Okay? It doesn't mean that people don't struggle, but they will get the kind of reward they will get beyond belief, right? So it's something that you want to be. Now, are there opinions that give certain people based on necessity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? There are. I'm not gonna tell you there aren't. You're gonna go to a faqih, a mufti. He will look at your circumstance. He will say, based on this circumstance, there's this type of darura, there's this type of haja, there's this. You, in this circumstance, you can do this. Okay? There are people, that exists. That I'm not a mufti, you have to go to a mufti. Okay? So I'm not gonna give you rule, because that's not my area. But you need to know that if there are people you can't go to ask for your particular, that doesn't apply to someone else. It only applies to you in that circumstance. Yes, brother.
In 2004, I performed the Hajj, and when I came to the New York, there's a man I met, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and he says that in California, there's a bank called lariba.com. So if you have an intention that I will buy a house or a car or anything, there are organizations in the United States that follows the Sharia, and you understand that there are law, but you can go. This is your wish, because you taqwa. When your taqwa comes, then everything Allah will give you.
Inshallah.
Trust me.
Yeah,
I am the burning example.
Okay.
I am the burning example. For instance, my
Okay.
home,
Okay.
2004,
Yes.
and this is 2026.
MashaAllah. Yeah, so there are there's Islamic financing that some of it is good, some of it is not good. Okay. So you need to again talk to a mufti about what it is. They will look at the they have to look at the contracts, okay? And they can tell you whether and my teacher, Sheikh Suhaili, he said, yes, Islamic finance, if it's done correctly, it is permissible. Okay? But again, you need to find out, you need to do your own homework, okay, about that. But some of it is not. Okay, it's just like trading, changing we got the ribawi contract, you just change a few names, and then it's not like that's not good, right? But then you just have to ask someone knowledgeable.
Another question from sisters is, how should I encourage my friend to wear hijab again?
Because it's the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's the sunnah. the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, that that there's consensus on this issue. There's ijma' on this issue. No one disagrees. Of the ulama from the beginning till today. Only maybe some people here and there have different ideas, but that doesn't count in terms of normativity and in terms of what the Sharia is. Yes, covering is required for women. Hijab, that's what we call it. We call it hijab. But it's the particular covering. Everything but the facing hands and then the Hanaf facing the feet. Also,
For example, you pray 5 times salat, equivalent to that for the woman to wear the hijab all the time. In if you just go to Surah Nur, go to Surah Al-Ahzab, it's a mandatory. Allah has ordered, it's 7 verses that it is a mandatory for the woman for the hijab.
but we have to understand that people are at different levels. Okay, not everyone is there, and remember that iman is the most important thing. So you don't want to push, like if someone doesn't have that ability, remember that iman is the most important thing. So you speak to people at their level, right? You speak to if they're struggling with their iman, you're not going to ask them to wear hijab. I mean, that's just the wrong thing to do at that point. Okay, you need to look at where are they at. If they're asking you, okay, then and they want to know, then you can give that and be an example oneself, right? Rather than kind of like going out to them and telling them that they have to. I think that especially in the times that we live in are very challenging. Notice most of the questions are about iman. Okay, right? My iman is weak. I'm feeling down. I'm feeling low. I'm feeling right. That's the questions people have. So this is the situation that we live in. So being together, and you want to make people feel welcome. So you don't want, it's not like someone's not wearing hijab and then they don't feel welcome. No, they need to be felt. They need to be welcome. They need to bring them in. Have them join in the events. Okay? Because we have to look at them as mu'minun, as Muslimun first, right? And we don't look at outward. We don't judge by the outward. Okay? Go ahead.
Inshallah, one last question
Okay.
before this question asks, what should we do when we mess up opportunities because of our own doing, and how should we look at these failures?
Right, alhamdulillah. So, failures are always opportunities. Okay? And the thing is that if a person is not making tawbah regularly, there's something wrong. You understand what I'm saying? If a person is not making tawbah regularly, it doesn't mean they're not sinning. It means that they're missing the sins that they're committing. Okay? So the failures, if you are aware of your failures, that is a good thing. Then we need to make tawbah from those things so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the tawfiq to move beyond that. It's like, for example, if I miss Fajr, I am going to make tawbah to Allah as soon as possible. As soon as possible, I'm going to make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, forgive me. What did I do? I did something terrible to cause that. Okay? So I'm going to make tawbah, I'm going to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, I'm going to, right? And then inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me the tawfiq to not miss it. Right? So that's a failure. But in that failure, there's the key to success. But the problem is when people, it's like when we had an MSA event, I remember when I was at UCLA, this is a long time ago. Like I was in the MSA, we had a conference, MSA West conference. It was like the first time we had it. And so we were hosting, we did workshops, everything like that. And so at my apartment, we had a whole bunch of brothers. So it was like filled with brothers, right? Nobody woke up for Fajr. Nobody woke up for Fajr after the first day. It's not funny. Okay, but the thing is that there were two groups of people. One of them, as soon as they woke up, they prayed Fajr and they asked for forgiveness. The other one, they just pulled the cover over. Who do you want to be? Do not be the one who pulls the cover over. Then you're missing out. Big time. The failure is not about the failure. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the Prophet sallallahu miss a salah. He made out to teach us. To teach us, what do we do when we miss a salah? Okay. If we missed Fajr, immediately pray Fajr, make Tawbah as long as the time is right. Right? You're not praying in the wrong time. But you pray Fajr, you make Tawbah to Allah, you ask for forgiveness, then you've succeeded. That failure has become a success. That failure has become a success for you. So there's always within these things, they're the opposites, they come together. Failure is connected with success. You can always make a failure a success through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Let's make the dua. Inshallah. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allahumma ij'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa la tafarraqna min ba'dihi tafarraqan ma'suma. Allahumma arhamna, Allahumma ighfir lana dhunubana, Allahumma astur 'awratina, Allahumma alif bayna qulubina, Allahumma waffiqna lima tuhibbu wa tarda. Allahumma thabbit qulubana 'ala dinik, Allahumma thabbit qulubana 'ala dinik, Allahumma thabbit qulubana 'ala dinik. اللهم لا قلوبنا اللهم ارحم المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الاحياء منهم والاموات اللهم فرج عن اخواننا في غزه وفي فلسطين وفي الضفه الغربيه وفي كل مكان اللهم اجبرهم اللهم يسر امورهم اللهم احفظهم اللهم احفظ بهم اللهم وحد شملهم اللهم وحد شمل المسلمين اللهم ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم تقبل منا يا الله يا حفيظ يا ارحم الراحمين يا رب الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم.